But it's so interesting to me because one of the things that I realized is that leadership, as far as I've always studied and learned and grown and read about and all the things, was really about your relationship with other people,
Mhm.
about how that looks. What I found with entrepreneurship is it's really about how you lead yourself.
Hello and welcome back. Welcome this afternoon for this episode of the Amuse Bouche Leadership Bites. I am joined here today by my friend Andrea Mancuso. Andrea, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Theresa. I'm so excited. I can't wait to chat with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be amazing. Andrea, so everybody, like, the world is like so crazy right now with like all kinds of challenges, all kinds of, obstacles that we have to face. I mean, I feel like we are in a renaissance of creativity with the rise of AI,
Mm.
forcing us to let go of some things and really tap back into that creativity. And it can be very stressful and overwhelming. And people are, like I said, people are jumping through hoops, including myself. So, thus, I wanted to bring on the person, the woman who is helping me through it, me through a lot of challenges that I face as a leader, running multiple businesses, because in hopes that she can help anyone who's watching this, whether you are watching it on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you are listening to it wherever you can listen to podcasts. I am hoping that Andrea, she has so much knowledge and so much wisdom. And I know if you're struggling with these same things, she's going to be able to help you today. So, Andrea is the founder of Intentional Healing and Wellness. She is a licensed mental health counselor. She specializes in leadership coaching, as well as helping women through midlife stuff. And I am there, trust me. So, Andrea, tell us how you got started. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes. So, well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to, share some info and talk with your audience. So, how did I get started? Well, I was a school psychologist for 14 years. I worked for the New York City public school system
Mm,
and was in a couple of different schools over my career. And I really thought that was it. I thought that honestly for a long time I felt my career was the one area that I had all figured out. And I was really working for personal development purposes in a lot of different areas of my life. And in 2016, I was introduced to a particular leadership program and started to go deeper with personal development work. And I remember leaving, it was a 4-day workshop. And I remember leaving the workshop and saying, well, let me throw Korea into the pile as well, because based on the activities and based on, the different conversations I had that weekend, I realized the career served me at a particular point. It was what I really wanted to do for a long time, but I was really starting to get clear on the fact that things were changing. I was changing. And so I was still in this role and, excuse me, felt somewhat committed to the role because of
mm,
the package that it came with. New York City public school system comes with an amazing package in terms of retirement and health
retirement.
benefits and, summers off and vacation outside of the summer vacation really added up to about a month. So I was really looking at working at 9 months per year, but still there was like something that was coming up for me. So fast forward, and in 2020, we know the world goes upside down with COVID. And my older brother ended up in ICU with COVID.
Mm,
Remember at the time, I have a master's in therapeutic intervention. I was in the school system for 14 years. I had a career based on clinical skills and helping support. And I found myself suddenly, literally losing access to every single thing that I had, learned and all of my skill set because I was just so afraid and wondering like what was going to happen. And it was a really, really, really scary, scary couple of days. And after 3 days, I remember thinking to myself, you are either going to navigate this pandemic like this, which is going to be no
yeah.
good for yourself, no good for anybody else, or you can do something about this that's going to be different. And I sat up and literally, that was the day that intentional healing and wellness was born. I, did what I
Mm.
paperwork to start my business. And for the first year, I was doing it in the evenings and on the weekends and sort of pouring myself into it outside of the career. And then
Yeah.
September 2021, I pulled the plug and jumped and stepped fully into this. And since then, have been on the wild roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. And it's been an amazing, beautiful, rewarding, fulfilling, uncertain, sometimes scary road since then. So that's really the beginning of things.
Oh my gosh. So, question for you.
Yeah.
What program did you go through? Do you mind sharing
Oh
the
yeah, no, I
leadership
don't
program?
mind. I went through a program, Momentum Education in New
Mm,
York City, and they had a couple of different locations at the time. They were based in LA and also in DC, and it was just an amazing program that was recommended to me. A friend, I was really going through emotional difficulty in my personal life at that time. And I was sharing with her and talking to her and saying, I just don't know what to do. I just don't know
yeah.
how to let go. I was, involved in a situation that just wasn't the best for me. And I really wanted to go and was struggling. And so I shared and was just like really raw and real with her and said, I just don't know what to do. And her answer to me was this program.
Mm,
Like, this is so interesting. Like, she didn't say anything else. She just offered that. And I went home that night and I signed up for it. And since I was working for the schools, I signed up in July, so I was able to jump in during the summer. And that was July 2016. And
mm.
my life has literally been one major personal development journey ever since that. It's been a beautiful
That's what
experience.
they say. They say, well, particularly as it relates to entrepreneurship, it is the biggest personal development
Totally.
education, like
Yes,
certification that you will ever get.
exactly. Like, it's
Forget Brendan Burchard, forget Tony Robbins.
right. It's
Just
all
become an entrepreneur.
seriously. I in 2016 when I started the work and then started to go through different programs and different workshops, and I really put myself into that path and that world, and I never really looked back. But nothing of the programs has been like entrepreneurship. Nothing. It's, I always joke and I laugh, but it literally is personal development on steroids because it's you up against you, all the
Yeah.
time. And it's your limiting beliefs and it's, you know, developing your habits and it's leadership. But it's so interesting to me because one of the things that I realized is that leadership, as far as I've always studied and learned and grown and read about and all the things, was really about your relationship with other people.
Mhm.
About how that looks. What I found with entrepreneurship is it's really about how you lead yourself.
And people don't realize that. People think that entrepreneurship is just you jump in, and I know a lot of people get caught in that trap of I have to prove that I have the knowledge.
Yeah.
So then they start putting on a mask. They start putting up walls because they don't want to actually just be themselves online.
Yeah.
So people, and then they think, oh, like, I'm being an entrepreneur. Yeah, coming up with creative solutions and coming up with, and it's all this external stuff. And as you, like you said, they don't realize that the majority of it is, you're right, how you lead yourself. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, like I said, myself included, and
Totally.
you know this, like, we get caught in this trap of, because you're online, thinking that you need to be somebody different, because if
Yeah.
not, then you're not going to be smart enough. You're not going to be, and all these things happen. I mean, when you become an entrepreneur, you are putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like,
That's it. It's you are
everything's
really
stripped
putting
away.
yourself out there. I mean, as far as like if that's part of what it's going to take to, bring your business and your vision and your mission to the next level, which I could identify with you as well. Yeah. And it's, if you're sitting with any level of discomfort around self or insecurity, right, around this is so, and these are so many parts of what I navigated on my own journey, but also what I work with different clients to like move through. If there's any discomfort around visibility or showing up or allowing yourself to be seen, right? If there's insecurity and you sort of get self conscious, it is now completely on Front Street, right? When you are in this, when you're on this path. And so there's a lot of really healing
Mm,
these ways that you view yourself or what you worry that people are going to think about you that is involved in the journey. And then there's levels to it, because as you move through, and I've been able to tell for myself as I have been able to move through various levels, there's always another level that presents where it's like, what's this? I thought, that I was made, like I made peace in this regard, but now it's, the more you grow and the more new, parts of your journey present itself, other things come up. And so that's where I always say there's so many levels to this journey, and there's so much, like, I believe there's a lot, and I speak about this with my work, healing connected to
mm,
success. And it's not because, we want to unpack our stuff and go live in the past, but it's about as we're journeying through and to where we want to go, a lot of things come up, and when they
totally.
come up, we need to be able to process and heal and work through and make peace with in order to keep going.
And a lot of people don't want to do that because that's where the real work is. I trained in martial arts for 17 years, and I remember one of my masters saying, Theresa, you're like, when I had gotten my black belt, he was like, it's like a circle. He's like, and you were the student and you're learning all these things, and then you master that and you become a master. But guess what? You have to go to the next level. So that
Yeah,
requires you to be a student again. And most people don't want to face that. It's like it's the law of impermanence.
yeah,
Everything is constantly changing. But it's like you get through that discomfort, and then as you said, like you have to heal through it, but then that next level is going to come that you need to heal from. And
totally.
that's where I think people get stuck is when they're forced to or pushed into, whether by their choice or something else's choice, that they have to become the student again, or they have to like go through that next level of healing. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. And I feel like a lot of times I speak about this a lot. People will say, whether they're prospective clients or clients, or, friends, they'll share like, oh, it's so hard, talking about this idea of like looking within and doing the work.
Mm,
And I
mm,
always push back and challenge that it's harder not to do it. It really is harder not to do it because that has you stuck someplace that you don't belong. That has you operating at a level that is sort of your cap, right? Your ceiling. And if you stay convincing yourself that it's so hard because
yeah.
you're afraid of looking, you're going to miss the fact that really being in the space that you're in is actually more challenging because you're way more capable, and you're, stopped at a particular space, and you get to go for like forward, you get to go, to greater levels of success. But with that, it's going to involve doing some intentional healing, really
Mm,
does involve looking at some things. And usually I would say 80% of clients that I work with, when we start to go on the journey and we start to really peel back layers and we start to really look at, okay, where are you now? Where are you looking to go? And then when we start to go on this journey and the stuff comes up, because it always does, and we have to do the looking back, they always say to me, I can't believe I was afraid of this. I wish I did this sooner. Because it really is that quote, the only thing to fear is fear itself. It
yeah.
really is true. So for
Yeah.
anybody who's listening, if there's something, and the thing, it's likely already popped into your mind. It's already, like these are the things that haunt us or the things that bother us about self. They're with us all the time. It doesn't take us much time to really access it. But whatever that thing is, it needs your attention. And when you
Mm,
give it the attention, you literally set yourself free. And when you don't, because are like bought into this whole thing of like, it's too hard, it's too scary. And for many of us, we don't want to necessarily open up the emotion that comes with it, but we're running from that emotion every day, and that has consequences too.
And then you just keep running and
And you
you
keep running, and it's exhausting, and it's like this
Mhm.
quicksand, experience, because the human mind is so sophisticated. Our
Mhm.
can't outrun our thought patterns and our emotions and our feelings. We can get very clever and try to avoid or try to numb, right? Which now comes with its own consequences, you know.
Sure.
So when you really look at this idea, and this is something I often will point out too, we often have like whatever the thing is, right, that we're trying to avoid or we're uncomfortable to process. And in an attempt to not go here, we will do all these different things. But when we
Mm.
come out the other side, we now have two layers of stuff to work through, because whatever we plugged in is now adding another level of stress, and you have the original thing happening. So my oldest client, he's 82 years old. And
Oh my gosh.
when he hired me at 80, he said, I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not good enough. And I want to heal my childhood stuff. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like he literally is, in a sense, like the poster child for intentional healing and wellness, because my premise is time does not heal all wounds,
Yeah.
intention does. So when even in a context of leadership, right now, there are things about you that need attention that are preventing you from showing up as a leader the way you possibly, can. Because there's some things that are like in the way we worry, the way that,
Sure.
and this is the powerful work that really begins to, as you peel it back, it's like, oh, oh,
What's underneath there?
yeah. And it's fascinating, because it's,
Yeah.
what better thing to learn more about than you?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
We engage in TV and news and social media and other people's lives. We're constantly looking at all of the highlight reels from other people's lives. And so there's a tremendous call to action to like focus in on you. Like, you are the best thing that you will be able to learn about and grow through. There's nothing to be afraid of when it comes
Yeah.
to self in that way.
I love that. It's like you're the you all I've heard this so many times, like you're the author of your own story. But
Totally.
yet you want to keep reading. You don't want to write your own story or read your own story, but you keep wanting to read everybody else's. But
Yeah,
yours is the most unique, creative, different, interesting one that you'll ever read.
totally.
So
And it's the only one you
I
have
love that.
control over,
Mm,
right? It's the only one, like I like to say, I love that you brought that up, because I love to say, you're not only the writer, but you're the director, you're the
the director.
producer, right? You're the star, like the lead actor or actress. And a lot of times we operate day to day as if none of that is true, right? We're living as if life is happening to us. And I spent a long time in that space, but there's two very distinct experiences of life. And I like to, in the context of leadership and this intentional living, like framework, I like to have people think of it this way: there's two very distinct ways of living your life. And if we imagine it to be a car ride, one allows you to get into the driver's seat and decide where you want to go and how you want to get there. And do you want to turn on the navigation, or do you want to take the scenic path and have the windows down and choose your favorite music, right? And that's intentional living. When you operate as if life is happening to you, it's as if you get into the back seat of the car and you wait. Who's going to get in and drive me someplace? Are they going to drive fast? Are they going to drive slow? Are they going to put on the radio? Are they going to put on the air conditioner? What's this ride going to be like? Does anybody even get in? Like, this is
Mhm.
what happens when we let life happen to us.
Yeah.
And that is a very dangerous way to go through life. I know I
Mm.
definitely spent time there.
Oh, I have too.
Yeah.
I have too. And like I said, you know, in working with you, like I've uncovered some things about myself that was like, wow, I really was like, I wasn't in the driver's seat and I
Yeah.
really needed to be in the driver's seat. And, I was a backseat driver.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to be a backseat driver. And I think,
So true.
again, like we don't even realize it because we get, we go through life and we have labels put on us and we have walls that we build and we have shields that we put up. And
Like,
when we end up presenting ourselves, everything is so covered up, and then we end up letting all this external stuff dictate who we are. So yeah, we're sitting in the
yeah,
back seat trying to be a backseat driver instead
totally.
of stripping all of that away and saying, you know what? Like, I'm going to architect my life. I'm
Yeah.
going to, and it was funny. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine before we hopped on, and she said to me, because we were talking about, challenges with leadership and challenges with building your business. And she said to me, she said, Theresa, I want you to just focus on what brings you joy.
Mm,
What brings you joy? If joining this program brings you joy, great. If, just working with a coach brings you joy, great. Like,
right.
and it was just, it was interesting because again, when we choose joy and when we choose ourselves and we choose to like really architect the way that we want things to be, life is so much better,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
totally. Totally. And it makes me think of two things based on what you said. Number one is when you reference as like backseat driver, the really difficult thing, aside from the fact that you full blown don't have control, right, over your own life in this example, the other interesting thing about thinking of it as backseat driver for anybody who's listening is that you, as you sit in the back, have idea about which way you would drive and how fast you would drive and when the car in front of you stops when you would brake, right? But now when somebody else is in control, they do it very differently. And so this leads to like this double whammy of there's like a self-abandonment involved because now you're not only sitting in the back seat and you've surrendered to somebody else getting in, but you also have your own ideas about what you would be doing if you were in control and now you're not. And so that is another level of, like hurt and pain and anxiety and overwhelm and regret and disappointment because now it's like, wait, what am I doing? Like I wouldn't have,
Mm,
would not, and it's not to say we're always right because it's not, but it's like I would not have taken that path. I
yeah.
actually would have went this way. And then we're resentful and upset and pissed off, but ultimately it's like, why didn't I get on the road the way that I know how to
Yeah.
get on the road, And so this is this idea of leadership and being self-led, and there's courage involved in that. There's trust involved, and there's vulnerability and risk because we just don't know outcome, and for some of us we really want the guarantee. I know, when I set out to do a thing, I'm like, I want to know how it's going to go. But it doesn't go like that. But at least if it doesn't go as planned and we make the decision, we get to recognize like, okay, I tried that, whatever. But when we surrender everything over to someone else and then it doesn't go as planned, now there's like these two levels of why didn't I listen to myself, and this like helplessness of being the backseat driver. So I just love that you spotlighted in that way. The only other thing I was going to point out is joy. I also don't know if this resonates for you and for your listeners, but for a long time I didn't know what brought me joy.
Mm,
I didn't know.
mm,
I grew up in, I grew up in Brooklyn. I was born in the late 70s, grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s, and I became like I developed a very thick skin because I needed to. And there
yeah.
was a lot of ways in which I showed up because I had to, and it was important in terms of survival and not allowing
Sure.
things to sort of break you down, if you will. And being a New Yorker and growing up in Brooklyn, there's a lot of grit involved. And there came a point in my journey where, during the personal development journey, where someone asked me about joy and what brings you joy. And I'm like, oh, like I could tell you where I struggle. I could tell you, what my obstacles are and all, but like I couldn't easily access to say, oh, this brings me joy, that brings me joy. And that got even more complex in midlife, like when I was in my, first like in my 40s, and I would say almost
Yeah.
about halfway through, and really recognizing that, wait, the things that used to bring me joy, I outgrew them. I don't even want to do those things anymore. So there was a real reinvention involved. And that's what got me fascinated about working with women, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, because there's really this major transformation that's happening. And often joy gets redefined in those years, which is exciting once you start to really recognize, but I think when you don't realize it, which for a long time I didn't, I was like, why is nothing making me happy? Like I feel like,
Yeah.
miserable. And why?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. I can totally relate to that. And it's that whole process of, you know, being able to sit in that discomfort of change
Totally.
and moving through it to figure out, okay, what are those new things that are me? And
Totally.
it is something, and I kind of I want to take this and pivot a little bit on that note where, talking about shedding and talking about being uncomfortable and talking about the insecurity and all of that as it relates to leadership specifically. So if we look at corporate America,
Mhm.
so many people have gotten laid off.
Yeah.
You hear about AI and people have gotten laid off. And you hear about, mid-level managers being impacted, people getting promotions or getting put into roles where they don't have the skills. So
Yeah.
here's the thing, they're being forced to change. They're being forced to strip away, and it's uncomfortable. And they're trying everything possible to navigate this using an old playbook because either they haven't had the training,
Yeah.
they've been given a handbook. I told you this story. I have a client where she was put into a leadership role and she was given a handbook and said, "Here's your handbook of excellence, follow it and then you're good to go." And
Wow.
there were so many things, and again, she was trying to play with an old playbook of what she was in a new role
Mhm.
that she had no idea how to be. And I think this is the part of personal development. It's even when I work with clients and they are um, thinking about a succession plan,
Yeah.
or they are selling their business and they don't understand or they don't realize because it's a shift, it's a change, it's a new thing, and they're trying to approach it with the same mindset, the same beliefs that they had. And when
Totally.
they start to enter into it, all this stuff gets unearthed. So if we talk about like just that discomfort of the change, again, whether they're forced into it or they're put into it themselves, but they don't understand what's coming next and kind of how this presents, like I said, people getting put into management roles and they don't have any management experience and they're just expected to just know how to manage people and
Yeah.
they've never done it before. So like what I know you have some experience in this, as far as like coaching leaders.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love that you bring this up because this is so real and it's happening like at record speed. So, a few things, some untraditional belief and and feeling and
We're all
others.
about
Yeah.
untraditional.
So, well, first and foremost, I would say based on what you're sharing, one of the things that came up to me was emotional intelligence. And this is a skill set that oftentimes people don't even recognize as a skill set, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what I use with my work with leadership development and all. So, first of all, emotional intelligence is said to be the leading predictor of leadership success. The leading predictor.
Yeah.
Every single training room, Zoom room that I have entered to lead a training on emotional intelligence as a skill set, I begin by asking who is familiar with emotional intelligence, and most hands go up. When I ask them who knows the 15 skills that make up emotional intelligence, no hands go up. Now, that's it's great news for us to start with, right? Because what we know is if this is the leading predictor of leadership success and no one knows the skill set, there's a disconnect,
Oh, huge.
right? Major disconnect.
Huge.
So when I hear you talking about, it's really about adapting, right? And changes occur. One of the emotional intelligence skills is flexibility, and it's being able to adapt and change your thoughts, your feelings, your views, your in some cases, even like workplace, if you will, right? To be able to go with the natural changes. Now, we are all somewhere along the spectrum of flexible, some much more flexible than others. And the interesting thing is, we often view ourselves in one way, but people that we are around view us in other ways, right? So we are not always like the best judge of how flexible are you. Um, but flexibility comes up and adaptability comes up as you share in terms of the changes that are occurring. And the thing is, this goes to the untraditional belief that I have. In many cases, leaders, people, employees, team members, they will rely on the workplace to provide them professional development training. And there's risk attached to only developing yourself based on what your supervisors, employers are willing to invest in you. And
Yeah.
so for anybody listening, this is the part that, if you only walk away today with one thing, there's like,
Hire a coach.
yeah, like radical responsibility in investing in you
Yeah.
as a professional, whatever level that you are at, wherever you work, whatever industry you're in, it's still, to me, applies. This is my own belief that if you want to separate yourself from competition and you want to stand out, then there is a radical responsibility in investing in you. Many of us are used to investing on us. We'll buy the pocketbook, the shoes, the nice clothes, the designer things, right? The massages, the trips. That's all ways that we invest on ourselves. Investing in you is about developing skill set. It's about, coaching, it's therapy, it's whatever. If the only thing that your budget allows for is a book, then it's getting the book and reading, because success leaves clues, as we know. And
Yeah.
so I just want to really drive that point home, because I can't tell you, I've heard endless times from people, well, they never taught me that. They never provided that training. And I'm like, okay, now in some cases it's totally appropriate, right? Because some things you really do need to learn on the job.
Sure.
But when it comes to leadership skills, when it comes to effective communication, when it comes to those types of like constructs, if you will, that's on you. If you want to stand out and be different than other people, if you want to have an advantage, and when it comes to emotional intelligence, one of the reasons I love doing the work with people is because I refer to it as the EQ advantage. You are
Mm.
literally developing a skill set that is said to be the best predictor of leadership success, while majority of the people who step in the room don't know what the skills are. They know empathy, right? Which is
Yeah.
one skill, but usually with emotional intelligence, most people will say, well, it's and yes, and it's great. And until I really dove in and learned it on my own, I also thought it was like certain, things that you couldn't quite put your finger on. But this is, I would say, Theresa, a big game changer for people when they really start to hone in on, and I could speak for myself, when I started to say, it's not the Department of Education's responsibility to develop me as a clinician. What skills do I want to enhance? And I started to actually go for different training experiences and different learning and development opportunities out of my pocket. Everything shifted.
Mm.
Everything shifted.
So what would you say? Like I have a client and I had a conversation with them a little while ago. They promoted someone to a management position,
Mhm.
a sous chef. And this person had never had managed, like was never a manager. So they promoted the person and then were frustrated because the person wasn't doing what they wanted them to do and wasn't leading the way that they wanted them to lead. And I asked them, I said, well, did you spend any time like explaining what the expectations were, what they needed to do? And they were like, no. And I'm like, well, you can't just expect someone to automatically know what to do and know how to be a leader. So either you need to invest in them,
Yeah.
you need to work with them, or encourage them to invest in themselves. Like, what would you say to someone who was having that situation where they promoted somebody but then didn't spend time with them?
Yeah, I would be curious about what they base the promotion on. I would definitely want to have that conversation. Like, what had you promote the person, right?
Mm.
Because they made a decision based on something. And so I would definitely want to sort of go on that journey with them, just to understand a little bit about maybe what they saw, what they felt was possible, what they believed to be, potential. Like, I would want to tap in on that level. And then I would also then support them around clarity in terms of what are the actual skills and expectations or desires that you have for this person in terms of, role, and like, how do you want them to show up? And then what really is important at this point now becomes training and, expressing the communication around, this is what's important, this is what we want to see, this is what, and like really then making it clear. Because, if you do receive a promotion, I would think majority of it is that because your employer is seeing something in you and feel that you're capable of the role. And so now if you're in the role and you're not performing in that way, like, what is that? What is that stuff? What's coming up, And those are like, that's the double journey I would want to go on,
Mm.
to get a little more information around, where are we not seeing the responsibilities or characteristics that you wanted for this person? Like, do they have
Yeah.
it? Like, did you base the promotion on something totally different? And that's all to be determined. And then really it's the learning curve also for the next time, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily for this particular role, assuming it's going to not work out. No, like, but more if when you are ready to hire again, these are the things to be looking at. These are the things to be considering. These are the conversations to have, potentially there could even be some level of trial on, in terms of, we're trying people out for this role, and we're going to pick according to how it goes, so that you're not necessarily like boxed in if that's the feeling now.
Yeah. I
But
think that's something that people don't consider is they only consider the hard skills that you need to do the job, but then there's the people skills, there's the
yeah,
human skill.
totally.
And I think more often than not, especially now, people are looking at the hard skills.
Yeah,
And what we really need to be looking at, and this is where I have an unconventional belief, is we need to be looking at more the human skill, but
totally.
also helping to do that development with the human skill. Because as you said, when people are getting promoted into different roles, there's a whole new level of being and becoming that
For
you
sure.
need in order to be a good leader, or just in order to like step into that new role, especially with all of the new technology and things that have been thrown our way. So I think the work that you're doing with leaders is so extremely important, because if you get the internal right, the external falls into place.
Totally. And I really believe, this stems from my time as a school psychologist. When I was a school psychologist, I was responsible for evaluating um, like IQ, right?
Mm,
So when students were struggling and students were going through whatever they were going through, if there was a decision to have the student evaluated to be considered for special education services, sometimes that was, academic, sometimes that was emotional, sometimes it was a combination. They needed to have a psychoeducational evaluation where we really went and looked at all of the levels of functioning. And what I found year after year and was always fascinated by is I was able to a lot of times have students in front of me that, in terms of their IQ, it was potentially like a low average IQ, or they were struggling. But in terms of their EQ, in terms of what they were capable of by way of emotional intelligence, how did they problem solve in real life? How did they control their impulses? How empathetic were they? How were they in terms of their own self awareness? They were higher. And so I would always know, like, to me, I always felt, and I, was in a role where the IQ score held a lot of weight,
yeah.
because based on what was coming out would be determining in terms of which way we went with service. But I always felt like, man, I just know this student's going to be fine. Like, even though there's like a lower IQ score happening, because the savvy people skills were. And so when I would hold meetings with parents, a lot of times I would have to share results out, and share numbers and then ranges and what that meant, like technically in terms of, norms and standards. I was always so happy to say like the caveat, the other side note around like, but I really believe that, you're like, he's going to be fine because
Yeah.
what's excelling is what we would consider soft skill, and that is like, and I just think that that really is so important when it comes to work and roles and effectiveness in life as a person, as a human. And if you have these skills where you have self-awareness and you have the ability to communicate to others, and you have the ability to adapt and be flexible, and there's a level of impulse control, and you're not the person who's going to go on your email and send off like a impulsive, right? Like if you have
Yeah.
this way about you, you're going to succeed, because this is what it means to be in relationship with people in life, in workplaces where we often don't choose who we're around. We get put into the environment, and now we have to navigate all the personalities and all of the different, you know, things, which gets tricky. It gets,
Hmm.
as we know, because we've all been in workplaces where we've been up against like personalities where it's like, ah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. People are incredibly complicated and
yeah, it gets
complex.
really complicated.
Worth understanding, but complex.
Total.
So, Andrea, this has been a phenomenal conversation. But
Yeah.
before we wrap it up, I have a couple just fun questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Yay.
All right.
Fun.
Where is your where is your office?
The one that I'm sitting in right now.
No.
Oh, where is my office?
Yes.
Is this a trick?
What do you call your office?
Oh, okay, okay. I'm like, wait, is you
No,
this
no,
is
no, no. Your
right.
office. Your
So
real office.
my real office, my unofficial office that I still call my real office, is actually a cafe that I work out of. Is that what you mean? Yeah. I love this. So I'm so happy I discovered this cafe. It's called Ambi, and it's in Somerville, New Jersey. And I was staying at my mom's in New Jersey for, a lot more time, and it's different being in New Jersey than in the city. So in her area, it's very rural and there's not much around. So I went to Somerville and found this cafe, and it became my office. I literally refer to it as, when I go there and it's crowded, I'm like, they're all in my office.
Get
Which is
out of my office.
get out of my office. But it's such a great place. And also,
Looks
I
it.
I get so much done. So even for anybody listening, like I struggled with this for the first couple of years of my entrepreneurship journey, because I was really home and I was trying to do things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you change your environment and you're inspired by the surroundings, how much things do shift. And that
Yeah.
became my office.
I love that. When you told me that, I was cracking up.
Hysterical.
What's something funny that people don't know about you?
Something funny people don't know about me. I would say majority of people don't know that I used to be, when I was younger, I played the saxophone and I was in a marching band. And
Ah,
that's like a fun fact. And it's also something that lately I've been feeling called to get a saxophone again and just sort of see like, where am I at with it? But that's like a fun fact about me.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh.
That's my thing.
I played the clarinet, by the way. I
Wow.
was not in a marching band, but I played the clarinet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
We had to
good.
pick an instrument.
Right.
I don't
So
know
good.
why I picked the clarinet.
I think they
Yeah.
start you on that because like I
It's the
definitely played that all the
easiest.
time too. Yeah, I think that's like more of like this, when you go into music, they kind of have some places to start you off. But yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't play that. I definitely forgot how to play that.
All right. What is a question that you wish people would ask, but they don't?
Hmm. Ask of me.
Hmm.
What is a question that I wish people would ask, but they don't? I would say the first thing, I'm going to go with the first thing that came to my heart. The first thing I would say is like, how are you? And not just like, how are you, like everybody does the surface. I think when you are the go-to and you are the strong problem solver, and sort of, I think people don't realize that you often also need to be checked in on, so I would say that would be my thing, to ask, check in on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I send text messages every day to people just saying, "Hey, how are you?" In case nobody told you, like,
Mm,
you're amazing, friends and people. And it's funny because oftentimes I've thought the same thing because many times over, I mean, I don't get messages.
yeah,
So, but someone once said to me, don't like just keep doing it, just keep
yeah,
doing it, because the fact that we are problem solvers, we are caring and kind individuals, like, that's unique.
yeah.
So, but I'm going to add you to my list now.
Thank you. I love that. That's a great thing that you do that.
Last thing, what are you most grateful for?
Mm. I would say my health, my wellness, and my family are coming to me in this particular moment.
Mm,
I just think, when I look around and see what the world, has happening and what people go through, I'm so grateful to be well and to feel good and to have, optimal health. And it's just such a blessing. And I would say my family, like, support, has been tremendous, especially on this particular portion of things in the last 5 years, 6 years since I started the business. There's been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown things. There's been a lot of fear, and to be able to, turn to people, loved ones, and just know, like, no matter what, I have people that love me enough to sort of stand by is a huge blessing. So, yeah,
yeah,
I would say those two things right now.
I love that. I love that. Andrea, this has been such a great conversation. And I know so many people, whether they're watching or they're listening, are going to get so many gold nuggets and so much. I mean, they are going to see like how empathetic and kind and knowledgeable and just intuitive you are.
Thank
And I'm so grateful and so blessed that I could have you on the show today.
thank you
Um,
so much. I'm so
can
happy to be here. I appreciate you inviting me. This has been a highlight of my day for sure. So I'm really, really happy.
I'm glad. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
thank you.
So how can people tell people how they can find you and work with you?
Yeah, thank you. So I am on Instagram at I am Andrea Mancuso. That is also my website. I am AndreaMancuso.com. And right now, in terms of work, there's opportunities for leadership coaching. There's also opportunities if you are a woman who's navigating midlife and you are experiencing all of the great changes and things that happen. There's that work. But my website really does outline,
Okay.
all of my work. And so I would say visit, the website. If anything, if a lot of times when I'm on podcasts and visiting people in different capacities, I know that a lot of times people think of things and have a question or want to share what came up. And so I always invite, like, send me an email, send me a message if you hear anything, if you're interested in sharing something. I would love to hear from your audience.
Perfect. Perfect. And we will definitely make sure that we include all of your links in the show notes. And we will also include it in today's episode on LinkedIn and YouTube to make
Amazing.
sure that people have the link so that they can find you and reach out to you.
Perfect.
Um, all
Thank you.
right. So thank you again, Andrea, for being on the show. And to everyone that is listening and watching, thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you back here next week. And until then, let's all take care of each other just a little bit more than we already do.
Love it. Thank you.
Now.